Which CPC leadership candidate will do the most to protect our right to freedom of speech? With the Conservative Party of Canada leadership election now underway, you might be wondering how to rank the candidates on your ballot. So let's take a look at what they each have to say about freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is a fundamental right in every democratic society. It is vital because it allows us to discuss topics freely and debate the pros and cons of the alternatives. Unfortunately, we are now at risk of losing our freedom of speech because millions of university students have been brainwashed with a pernicious neo-Marxist ideology that justifies censoring dissenting opinions. To start, I'm going to look at what each candidate's website says about freedom of speech. Here's a Google search for free speech on the site petermackay.ca, and you can see there are no results found for free speech in quotes, which means that phrase, on the site petermackay.ca. There are results for free from China. There's a result for tax-free, but not free speech. And we're looking specifically for something related to freedom of speech. So let's try freedom of speech. And I'll click here. And what do we get? No results at all for freedom of speech on the site petermackay.ca. I guess that's because Peter Mackay's views are pretty far to the left, so he's never had to worry about being censored. Now let's search Erin O'Toole's website for freedom of speech, and you can see there's one result here. Freedom of speech is a bedrock principle of our society and must be protected. Good. Peacefully protesting is a key type of speech that our government must protect. Well, why does he feel that's the kind of speech that must be protected? It seems that people are protesting as much as they want and nobody's stopping them. What is being stopped is any speech that the cultural Marxists disagree with. For example, a university professor might risk being fired for openly opposing abortion or for saying that women, blacks, gays, transsexuals are not oppressed. So it's ironic that has chosen protesting as a key type of speech that our government must protect when it's actually other kinds of speech that are being censored. Let's now look at the phrase free speech on the same site, erinotoole.ca. Here we get a different result, and it says, are you with me? As conservative leader, I'll take on the radical left and stand up for free speech. I'll defend Canadian history against cancel culture. On the web page itself, we can see that he doesn't go any further than that. He doesn't say anything in addition about free speech. So that's the extent of what Erin O'Toole says on his website about freedom of speech. Next, looking at Leslyn Lewis's website, we can get Google results for the phrase freedom of speech and for the phrase free speech. On her actual website, she says, as the next Prime Minister of Canada, I will withhold federal research funding from universities and colleges that do not respect freedom of speech on campus. And on another web page, she says, we need to have the courage to stand up against the current wave of lawlessness sweeping our country. We need to stand up for the values that make this country great, including respect for democracy, the rule of law, freedom of speech, and freedom of religion. Googling Derek Sloan's website, we can see there is a result for freedom of speech and for the phrase free speech. Let's look at Derek Sloan's policy page to see what he intends to do to protect our right to freedom of speech. He writes, Derek will always defend the indispensable Canadian right to freedom of expression. Freedom of speech is foundational to our democracy. As Prime Minister, Derek will repeal Bill C-16 immediately. This is the bill that enshrined compelled speech into Canadian law. It also severely infringes on parental rights and on women's sex-based rights to private spaces. In case you don't know, Bill C-16 compels Canadians to use invented gender pronouns when referring to people who do not identify with their biological sex. I'll continue reading from Sloan's website. It says, Derek will also make federal grants to universities conditional upon proof that all recipients respect free speech and free inquiry on campus. Also, Derek is concerned by online censorship and algorithmic bias by tech giants like Google, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. If elected Prime Minister, Derek will introduce legislation to make it illegal for an online platform to ban a user unless the user has been documented breaking Canadian law. Well, I have a question about that. Will YouTube be required to reinstate YouTubers whose channels were terminated in previous years without valid justification? Also, will the law protect only Canadian YouTubers or YouTubers from around the world who have not broken Canadian laws? Sloan's website also says that Derek will introduce legislation to amend the Canada Elections Act to kill the gag law aspect of its third-party advertising regulations. Derek will do this because Canada should never ever become a country where people fear to publish or speak opinions that run afoul of those that govern them. He believes that political parties should not have a monopoly on political commentary. That's a right that belongs to all of us. Well, I agree that we should each be allowed to speak our minds and even publish political books during elections. However, if we don't require third-party advertisers to report their spending, then China, Russia, Iran, and George Soros could spend enough on advertising to change the results of our elections without us ever knowing about it. Returning to Derek Sloan's website, here's another issue that's discussed: free speech in the Conservative Party of Canada. The politically correct intolerance of cancel culture is out of control and must be stopped. One victim of the liberal light, red Tory elite's version of cancel culture is Richard Descaries, who was barred without explanation from this CPC leadership contest, almost certainly because of his outspoken positions. Jim Karahalios has also been disqualified twice. In the lead-up to the last election, a number of potential CPC nomination candidates were also cancelled by CPC headquarters for similar reasons, either officially or through other tactics. Under Derek's leadership, the cancelling of the candidacies of principled Conservatives will end. Free speech will be our guiding policy, not political correctness. To sum it up, Peter Mackay's website says nothing at all about freedom of speech. Erin O'Toole says very little. Leslyn Lewis shows significant commitment to ensuring our freedom of speech, and Derek Sloan addresses the issue with the most detail and specifics. So if preserving our right to freedom of speech is important to you, you might want to rank Derek Sloan and Leslyn Lewis first and second respectively on your ballot. But of course, the choice is yours to make. Please click the like and subscribe buttons. Thank you.